We'll now look at a few more examples for determining the area under the normal curve. Recall that in order to work these problems, we must have access to the table in our book. Recall that we have a table for negative z-scores, and we have a table for positive z-scores. Both tables can be found in section 12.5 in your textbook. Our first example asks us to find the area under the normal curve between z is equal to negative 2.23 and z is equal to negative 1.81. So I'm going to begin by drawing my curve. I'm going to mark off down the middle, 0. Remember that your positive z-scores are on the right, your negative z-scores are on the left. Both of these z-scores will fall on the left-hand side. You are treating this bottom axis like a number line. So negative 1.81 would be closest to 0. And then a little further down, you would have negative 2.23. And we want to find the area in between these two numbers. And so we're going to shade this section in between. So we're now going to go to our negative table and we're going to look these values up. So our first z-score is negative 2.23. And we're going to look for that one first. So we're going to find negative 2.2 down the left-hand side and a 3 in the hundredths place. And we'll intersect that row and that column and find an area of 0.0129. And we're going to go ahead and do the other one while we're here. Our other z-score was negative 1.81. And so we're going to find the negative 1.8 and the 1 in the hundredths place. And we'll intersect those two to give an area of 0.0351. And so now we're going to go back to our problem and we're going to look at the picture that we drew. Now remember that the table gives you the area to the left of the number that you looked up. So when we looked up negative 2.23, that gave me an area of 0.0129. And remember that 0.0129 will be the area to the left of negative 2.23. So right in here, we will have 0.0129. Now, again, remember that that is not shaded. So that tells us that at some point we're going to be subtracting that off. All right, our other z-score was negative 1.81. And when we looked up that one, we had 0.0351. So again, 0.0351 is the area to the left of negative 1.81. And so that is going to be the area from here all the way back to the left. And so let's look at how we find the area of the shaded region. So we know that the area 0.0351 is the area of the shaded region combined with the area in the left tail right here of the curve. And so we're going to need to subtract. So we're going to take the total, which is 0.0351, and we're going to subtract off the part we don't want, which is the 0.0129. and that's going to give me my final answer. So that's going to give me 0.0222. And so 0.0222 will be the area of the shaded region in black. Our next example asks us to find the area under the normal curve to the right of negative 1.95. So again, I'm going to draw my curve. I'm going to mark 0 off in the middle. Positive z-scores are on the right, negative z-scores are on the left. So negative 1.95 is going to be on the left-hand side. And we want to shade to the right. So we're going to shade all of this to the right and work on finding that area. So let's go back to our negative table. And let me clean it up a little bit here. And our z-score was negative 1.95 that we want to look up. And so we're going to find negative 1.9 on the left-hand side and the 5 in the hundredths place and intersect those two, which gives me an area of 0.256. All right, so let's take that back to our problem. And so we know that the area for 1.95 or for negative 1.95 is 0.256. And we also know that when we look up an area in the table, we're finding the area to the left of the z-score that we looked up. So what we have found when we found 0.256 is this area right here. Now, again, we know that it's not shaded, so it's going to have to be subtracted off in our final computation. So what are we going to subtract it from? What we know is that the total area of the curve is equal to 1. So if the whole curve were shaded, the area would be 1. And from that, we're going to take off this part in the tail that we don't want. So we're going to subtract off that 0.0256, and that's going to give me my final answer. And so my final answer here will be 0.9744 for the area of the shaded region. Our final example asks us to determine the area under the normal curve between z is equal to 0.47 and z is equal to 1.52. So we note that both of these numbers are positive, so they both will appear on the right-hand side of the curve. Again, we're treating this like a number line across the bottom. So 0.47 is going to come in first, and 1.52 will be next. And the problem asks us to determine the area between these two numbers, and so we'll shade in between. So now let's go to our positive table and let's look these two values up. So our first z-score is 0.47. So we're going to look up 0.4 down the left-hand side and a 7 in the hundredths place. And so the area will be 0.6808. Our other z-score was 1.52. So let's do this one as well. Down the left-hand side, we're going to look for 1.5. And across the top, 2 in the hundredths place. We'll intersect that row and that column, which gives me 9357. And so now let's go back to our problem and work out our final answer. So we know that when we looked up 0.47, we found an area of 6808. And we know that 0.6808 is the area to the left of 0.47. So that is going to be this section right here, 6808. Now for our other z-score, the 1.52, when we looked it up, we came up with an area of 9357. And 9357 is the area from the z-score that we looked up all the way back to the left. Okay, so let's think about how we find the area of the shaded region. We know that the 9357 is the total of the shaded part along with this part on the left that is not shaded. We also know that any part that's not shaded is going to need to be subtracted off in our final computation. And so we're going to take 0.9357 and we're going to subtract off 0.6808, which gives me a final answer of 2549.